right, it's our first event of 2025. My name is Kitty Douglas, and I'm so honored to host tonight's conversation with the Bulwark's Jonathan V. Lass and Sarah Longwell. Big Tent USA is a pro-democracy organization, full stop. We believe in civic engagement and activism through education, and we are not going anywhere. Before I introduce our fabulous guests, I just want to take 1 minute as a personal thank you from Big Tent to everyone at the Bulwark. They have been unwavering and very clear-eyed about their support for the Constitution, the rule of law, and our republic, and they have never wavered. They didn't take a day off after the election, and they have stayed loud and proud, and we are very, very honored to have Sarah and JVL with us tonight. And if you are not a Bulwark subscriber, run right now. We'll put the link in the chat. I highly recommend signing up. And if you want to be a paid subscriber, then you can listen to the secret podcast every single week like I do. Sarah Longwell is the publisher of the Bulwark, which she founded in 2019. She regularly conducts focus groups with voters across the political spectrum and hosts the podcast, The Focus Group, which is in its 4th season. It's an outstanding look at how Americans are feeling about the election and about their candidates, their representatives, and many other things. So thank you for that, Sarah. And she also co-hosts The Next Level with JVL and The Secret Podcast with JVL. Jonathan V. Lass is the editor of the Bulwark and previously worked as a senior writer and digital editor of the Weekly Standard. Sarah and JVL, thank you so much for coming to Big Tent. I'm going to turn this call over to JVL. And again, questions in the chat for both of them. Thank you.
Thank you, Kitty. That was so kind of you. And hey, best friend, I dressed up for you tonight.
Oh yeah, you look great in your hoodie.
When's the last? No, I wore a shirt
hoodie
with a
over
collar.
a collared shirt, and that's
when is the last
up?
time you saw me in a collared shirt?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I can't tell.
I don't know. You don't like to be around people, so it's hard.
You've outed me. So, all right, guys, we're gonna try to. Sarah and I do so many shows, and I think we're just gonna do this like it's a show, and I hope that's okay. And we're gonna go into the 35,000 foot view shortly, and do some big think. Where are we now? Where do we go from here? Talk. I want to start with a little news of the day, though. And so today we had really 2 news events. We had Confirmation Palooza with hearings with Straight Cash Patel, Tulsi Gabbard, and RFK Jr. And then we had Donald Trump's press conference where he blamed a terrible plane crash on Black people and women. So I guess we'll start with the good stuff first, which is the confirmation hearings, which is somehow less depressing than the president's press conference. Sarah, what'd you think? Did you come out of this thinking, ooh, actually I see some vulnerabilities and maybe one or more of these people could be stopped?
I'm not sure. I mean, I think that, so there's 3 different ones. 3 of the big ones are happening. Right now, I think the most vulnerable of the 3 are Cash Patel and Tulsi Gabbard, with probably Tulsi Gabbard being the actual most vulnerable, because she, like, in all 3 cases, they're doing this thing where we know who they are. They've said the things that they've said. RFK has been the same person the whole time. He's been an anti-vax advocate, like an advocate against vaccines, saying they cause autism the whole time. In his hearing, pro-vaccine. Cash Patel,
pro-science.
He has
Sarah,
been on
just
this
pro-science.
He's been on Stu Peters.
Who's that?
Podcast.
I'm not sure that name rings a bell.
8 times. 8 times spouting QAnon insanity, and today said he didn't know who Stu Peters was and called QAnon crazy conspiratorial nonsense. And Tulsi Gabbard, I don't know why that's happening. I don't know why that's happening. We're celebrating. And Tulsi Gabbard, you know, she, I think people are like, pretty concerned about her because she's been sort of pro-Assad, pro-Russia, pro our enemies, essentially, for most of her career. And giving her our nation's secrets feels deeply disturbing for anyone who's serious. And I do think there might be one or two people who are going to be too weak-kneed for her. Actually, I don't mean too weak-kneed, but like, because it's actually, it would be a sign of strength, but to whom she makes them queasy enough that they might say no. But I got to tell you, I would not put my money on them getting 4 people to say no, 4 Republicans to say no, which is what they need, to any of these guys. And they're leaning a little harder on cash stuff, but for the most part, what the Republicans are doing in these hearings is they're saying, are the Democrats being so mean to you guys? Are they just saying the worst stuff by reading your own words back to you? Don't worry, I'm here, and I've been very impressed with all that you've done. And so the Republicans are there to ensure a soft ride. But it really does. You do have to recognize, like, we would watch these things and be like, anybody with a half-working sense of credulity would watch them and say, well, these people are completely unqualified, completely unfit, and they're obviously lying. We all know what they said. It's all there. And the Republicans are testing that credulity, straining it by being like, I don't think they meant that. I think it's fine. I don't know. What did you think? That was my takeaway. Wait, hold on. I'm going to make one meta point, though. Between Trump's conference and the fact that the worst 3 of these are happening roughly at the same time, you can see in it their attempts to overwhelm the news cycle and the opposition by making it too hard to go after all these things. Sorry. Now you go.
Yeah, that's right. So the most important thing to know is that for Tulsi, her vote, I believe, is a closed vote. I believe her committee vote is a closed vote. And the other important thing to know about her is that, as the Gates thing showed, the most important thing in determining whether or not Republicans will bail is whether they have personal beef with the person. And because she's a Democrat, none of these people have ever liked her. So I think there's a reasonable chance that she goes down. And also they can frame a stand against her as being butch on national security.
Right.
So for those 3 reasons, I think Tulsi is the most vulnerable of them. Kash Patel is the one who, in a serious country, would get 0 votes.
Right.
Right. I mean, and if I had a magic wand and I could only block one of them, he's the one who can do the most damage to America. And he's the one who I think is most likely to get through.
You think he's more likely than RFK?
Yeah, I think he probably is.
I do think,
just for political dynamics.
I do think that Trump has made it clear to the Republicans he wants cash. Like, yeah. I don't think he wants to take an L on RFK, but I think he would live with it. Whereas he wants cash because the retribution via the FBI is not like an ancillary benefit of his victory. It is the thing he wants to do.
Right. And the Kennedy thing is just a debt he owes. Right. I mean, this was clearly,
right.
They worked this out together so that Kennedy would be on board with MAGA. And if Kennedy were to go down, like, yeah, okay, it's very sad. Trump doesn't like losing, but it doesn't hurt him. And he did his part. He satisfied his end of the bargain. Yeah, it's all very bad. We did a show last night about the RFK second day of hearings, and that basically broke me. It was it's really something. All right, and then we have the Trump press conference about the unspeakable tragedy last night. We had this crash happen while we were finishing our live stream. The news reports started trickling in. This is sort of a thing which hits very close to home for everybody in the DC area. Because for all sorts of reasons, we just had show up in our Slack internally that a bunch of kids from the Fairfax County Public School system and their parents were on that flight and are lost. So, I mean, I feel sick inside to have any conversation about this that is political. And in fact, somebody, some CNN anchor this morning said something like, well, Elon Musk did drive out the administrator of the FAA on January 20th. And so this is on Trump. And then that CNN guy was like, 30 minutes later, he was apologizing for it and, shouldn't have been politicizing. And then the president of the United States goes out and is like, yeah, it's the DEIs. I mean, does this make you sick too?
Yeah. I mean, obviously it all makes me sick. It's always made me sick. I hate living in what feels like an unreality. This is a point that you talk about a lot that I was very cognizant of today, which is the asymmetry in behavior. So last night, there were some people who kind of were trying to, in the immediate aftermath, some, let's say, like I saw Bakari Sellers do it, saying like, this is on Trump. Trump froze these parts of the federal government in this sloppy way. And, this has something to do with, and he ended up deleting it. He took it down because he was so, pounded by people being like, how dare you politicize this? And this is a thing about Democrats right now, is that they will feel bad. They don't want to politicize it. But Donald Trump has no such shameless gene, right? And so Donald Trump, this is his superpower, is that he knows that this is one of the first things to happen on his watch. And so he has got to go out and say that it was one of the bad guys, one of the MAGA institutional enemies that he knows is deeply unpopular with the American public, which is DEI. But DEI is not a thing. I mean, basically what he was saying there is like, it was probably some women pilots or some black pilots or or it was gay Pete Buttigieg running the transportation administration. Like, that's why this happened. It happened because not enough straight white men were in charge, which, by the way, here's the thing. Even as an empirical matter, there's no evidence any of that is true. We don't know anything. No. It's an insane, grounded in nothing. Like, it's not like somebody was like, all three of the pilots were women. And so that's what he's doing. It's just based on
this tragedy
zero.
Doesn't need a villain. That's right. The other thing. It's not like there needed to be a villain. You could just be a normal president and talk normally about this is terrible, right?
About the tragedy, and we're going to get to the bottom of it. But instead,
we're going to do what we can to help all of these people. Like, it's anyway. All right, people in the chat are yelling at us.
People are what?
People in the chat are yelling at us. They want action items. They want to know how to fix everything. So,
okay,
Sarah, could you tell everybody how to fix everything? Where do we go from here?
No problem.
No. So this is the larger question, and this is a where do we go from here? And I am sorry, dear audience, there are not good answers. If there were good answers, we wouldn't have to have this conversation. And even if there were good answers, you can't do anything except get into position to get into position, right? I mean, you are making meta moves on the board to try to be in a better position to lower the president's approval rating so that the off-year elections go well for Democrats, so that in the second half of 2025, a bunch of Republicans who have the power, like the 4 Republicans who have the power to stop Trump in some places, feel like they have more cover to do so. So there are no great answers. But I guess I want to start by talking about the stakes, and not even the stakes, but I want you to give me your best case scenario for the next 2 years and your worst case scenario for the next 2 years.
So I'm going to apologize and say I'm not going to do 2 years, and here's why. It's because one of my action items, one of my recommendations for people who are thinking about how to approach this moment is to think about things in a 5-year timeline. And here's why. I think one of the traps for people, especially the Democrats have kind of gotten in, is living sort of cycle to cycle, right? So we're thinking about 2026, we're thinking about 2028. Good. But I think you're better served by thinking about what do you want the world to look like in 2029 or 2030, but basically like, what do we want to happen after Trump is no longer president? What do we want in the world? And to that help.
So 2038 is where you're
so this is what's funny about it, right? No, not funny, but not funny, haha, but is that Trump makes jokes about running again. He does not want to be a lame duck. His lame duckness is right now a strength. It's a strength because he doesn't have to get reelected again. He can just sort of not think about electability. But it's also a liability in the sense that, he's hot for a minute here, but he can quickly be put out to pasture if younger J.D. Vance and Tucker Carlson start to look like the future, and he starts to fade into he becomes less relevant. He will hate that. And so he's got to stay relevant by flirting with the idea that it's Trump 2028. But that can still be part of your 5-year thinking. You can think, I want to make sure Trump doesn't run again. Now, one of the best ways to make sure that his joke doesn't land is for Trump to be unpopular. And so let me just put some meat on the bones of what JVL just said, because I agree with that broad statement about you want to get into position. But how do you do that? And I think specifically in my case, it looks like this, and it's quite simple. You are not going to talk people out of Trump right in this moment. He is getting a honeymoon period that he has not had before. A bunch of people are so frustrated with how things were under Biden, whether you agree with that or not, that frustration really exists, and people are going to give him time to do the things that he said he was going to do. And I'll tell you, I've been doing focus groups the last few weeks. And one of the number one things that I've heard about Trump since he's been doing it is people don't know exactly like what is in the executive orders, but they know he's doing the things he said he was going to do. They see ICE trucks in their communities, and I don't mean they're selling ICE. People are seeing ICE in their communities. People are seeing a lot of people bring up that they're getting rid of DEI. They have established 2 genders again. People like that. And I'm not talking about hardcore MAGAs here. I'm talking about kind of these low info, low propensity voters. And so he's going to get his honeymoon. And so if people think that right now you're going to knock him down, I think that's wrong. I think what we should be spending the next 100 days doing, and the OPM freeze and the OMB memo, like that stuff is a good reminder to us that he is still filled this place with incompetent people and he is going to do damage. And so our job is to listen to their voices and understand the pain points. Where is he letting people down? Where is it hurting people? Where are people having negative personal consequences? So for me, that's always why the focus groups are important. You got to hear who are the audiences that have a transactional relationship with Trump. I was mad about prices. I was mad about the cost of my healthcare. I was mad about, the cost of my apartment. And what is that person? And I thought Trump could do something about it. I'm giving him a shot. Well, what does that person think in 6 months? And here's the thing. Most presidencies, they get a honeymoon period. Okay. Trump was unique in that regard last time, but Biden got one. He was much more popular at this time than Trump is right now. And then Afghanistan, it was August of 2021 when things fell apart for Biden. Things will fall apart for Trump. And so the getting in position to get in position means understand where he's failing people. And then in the back half of the year, you tell him that he's failing them. You tell him that he made promises he's not keeping. You use words like failing and betrayal, and you make sure to talk to people. The lack of communication from the last administration was criminal, and Democrats are going to have to figure out how to go on offense. Their silence right now is frightening, but I also think that they are grappling with, and I will sort of, they're grappling with the fact that a lot of the things Trump is doing, the DEI, the immigration enforcement, they are popular. Ezra Klein said something that I think is really, really interesting, which is that he said Trump won the culture war by a much higher margin than he won the election. And that is right to me. That sounds really right based on what I hear from voters. And so Democrats, I think, are struggling with the fact that he's going after DEI and they now no longer really want to jump in and defend DEI. He's going after immigration and they're basically like, you know what, we lost the argument on immigration. And so people want this and we're going to have to kind of let him do the thing. So anyway, that is, I believe, it is. I believe Democrats obviously need to be better at communicating and fighting back, and I wish in these moments they were better at it. But I also think that there is a world in which the overreach will lead to backlash, and you have to be prepared to hit it then when people have personal consequences, and that might be okay that moment's not right this second.
Well, I mean, you're so those are two different things, though. Talking about overreach and being able to counterpunch on backlash is different from setting up things on which he's failing and not delivering, right? Because like the setting up issues, like good issues for you, could be healthcare, right?
Right.
Healthcare is a huge vulnerability for Trump because it's going to keep getting more expensive, and nothing that can be done about it to make consumers' lives better is permissible in Republican politics. So that's a place where you could stake out some ground and try to attack him on it. Also, it doesn't hurt that Mark Cuban is spending a hill of his time trying to lower prescription drug costs in advance of his presidential run in 2028.
Yes.
And but the other thing is you're talking is sitting and waiting to counterpunch on things. And so maybe, boy, we've got a bunch of dead kids and he's trying to blame black people and women is a place to counterpunch. No?
I agree. And so this is, I guess, you're right. Let me disaggregate just two quick things. One is what I think Democrats should be doing right now, which is Democrats need to always be looking for contrast messaging every day. That's what they do. He is doing this and it's insane. We would never do this. Like, our hearts go out to the victims of this. Donald Trump is politicizing it and blaming people. Okay. So that is Democrats' job, and they're not doing it particularly well at the moment. And then there's sort of the job of what I would call people on this call, of us. Now, obviously, we are doing it every day as a media entity, but I also wear a hat of activism. And so I do the focus groups in service of how do you make Trump less popular? How do you, so that people at the end of his 4 years go, man, we tried that and we're not doing it again. Don't give me Tucker Carlson. Don't give me another one of these crazy people, because the experience was awful and it had really negative consequences for me. And like, give me someone, they still are going to want somebody authentic. They very much would like somebody who's not a regular politician, but you sort of need them to reject what is becoming a pretty quickly entrenched, not just person in Trump, but view of the world, which is the America First vision. And in America First is a bunch of things. It is, we don't want immigrants here. It is, we're going to be, we're about a multiracial, multi-working class coalition. And so we're going to, they are much more populist in the protecting Medicare, Social Security, things like that. We are gonna, we are the party of Main Street. They're the party of Wall Street. And they're the, we aren't going to get you involved in foreign wars. That's part of America First. But you hear this, I hear it from voters all the time where they say, why should we send money over here for this when we should be taking care of our own at home? That is a very dominant feeling right now. And Democrats are going to have to figure out how to get
Sarah,
into that. But sorry,
go ahead, because I have a question about that.
Okay, but as an activist matter, I don't think you start messaging to people. I would not spend $50 million on ads for the next 6 months, because I don't think they're going to do that much good. Sorry, JB.
So for friends here who are not familiar with our relationship, Sarah and I have been having an argument, basically the same argument, for like 7 years now. And so it is absolutely true that you hear over and over people saying, why are we spending money over there on fill in the name of the country when we should be taking care of people at home? And like 90% of those people, when you then say, great, we'd like to spend money to take care of people at home, they say, what? Why are you taking care of those people? I hate those people. They don't need that. And all of this is my point in all of this is that people are unreliable narrators of their desires and preferences. And you can see their revealed preferences from how they act. But let's go back, because we only have another minute or two before we got to start taking questions. And I do want to set you up for something first. But before we get to that, so what should civilians be doing? Like what, if you're a person sitting on this Zoom and they're wondering, well, crap, what can I do? What's the answer? Is the answer like give money to your local Democratic senator? Is it to even in the off years start trying to get people to register to vote? Is it call your congressman, write to your congressman? Is it just be a good person in the world and try to model good behavior, which I mean sounds stupid, but is something I believe in like very deeply. Um, what what is the answer for somebody like literally sitting on the Zoom here?
Well, I always think being a good person in the world is a good idea. I am, yeah, I think, look, there's going to be a lot of really bad things happening to people who are immigrants to this country, and a lot of them are going to need direct support. There are churches that help them. I would do direct support to people who are affected by it, if that like feels if that's the kind of thing you want to do. That's not a political thing though. That's about
That's a
charity.
human
As
thing though, right?
what?
And you're saying that's a human thing though,
It's a
where
human
you're
thing, and I
saying
think it will.
Democrats have lost the immigration battle and like, helping out people who are undocumented is not going to be very popular, right? I mean, the majority in America is against helping out people who are undocumented.
That's right. But I think that there's, you're gonna have parents getting deported and their kids, staying behind. And I think there's gonna be a lot of things that pop up that is just gonna meant to be, that it's not even gonna be political. It's just gonna be meant to provide immediate human relief in some way. Like there's nothing, and I, if they send people with criminal records back to their home country, like nobody's that there, but there's a lot of other things that are going to happen that I think where people can help. My point is that as a political matter, convincing people that what Trump is doing is wrong or bad, you are only going to be able to do that when they start to feel negative personal consequences in their own life. And I will tell you, the last 4 years, it is very easy to talk, as we already see governing is harder. And so while they struggle to govern and they make a mess of people's lives, that is when you have an open opportunity for persuasion. But I don't think there's a persuasion opportunity right in this moment.
All right, so look, Kitty, I'm going to get you in 1 second here. I know I'm going longer than I said I would.
It's okay. It's all good.
This is a request. I mean, is it a question of letting people see negative consequences in their lives, or is it a matter of persuading them that there are negative consequences in their lives? Because what we saw over the last 4 years was, again, I know you hate it when I say this, but the numbers are the numbers. The economic data was very good. The average American was much better off at the end of Joe Biden's tenure than they were before. And it's not even close. It's just the way it was. And when you asked people, the disparity in polling between people saying, how is your economic situation and your economic outlook? How are things in your state? Everybody would say, very good numbers on that. Ask, what is the economic picture like broadly? Terrible. People were more pessimistic about the economy than they were in late 2008, early 2009 during the Great Recession. So is there a messaging component to that part of people seeing negative consequences, or no? Is it you just wait for reality?
Of course there is. I mean, this is the thing. I mean, Donald Trump every day said that the economy is a failure and Joe Biden made it happen. Every day. They just hit that and hit that and hit that. And I'll tell you, actually, you want to know something you can do? I think people think they need to like call their Republicans, like they should be calling Susan Collins or they should be calling Lisa Murkowski. No. I mean, maybe call them if you want. But you know who you should call? Call Democrats and be like, hey guys, you know what we need? A leader. Why is there such a vacuum of leadership right now? Why aren't you guys doing anything? Stop holding press conferences 2 days after the thing happened. Tell them all they need media guidance. Tell them all that everything, everywhere.
Get out your phone and do a TikTok on it.
Yeah.
Right.
Like,
and talk like a human being.
Talk like a human being. Everything,
say
Everywhere, All at
AOC?
Once was a crappy movie, but it is a good communication strategy. Democrats are
It's a
going to
very good
have to
movie.
figure out how to go start. And like, it can't just be Pete Buttigieg and Gavin Newsom as the only communicators in this party. Donald Trump didn't just create, there isn't just a right-wing media ecosystem. Donald Trump created an incentive structure, a financial incentive structure for people to go to bat for him. Democrats need leaders to get people excited. And right now, like, I just don't see them. I don't see people doing it.
Yeah. So, Katie, before I'm going to throw you here for real. I promise. I swear. My advice to Democrats would be to look at AOC and look at the way she talks to people, because she talks like a human being. Chris Murphy does this too. I mean, Hakeem Jeffries had a thing out today where he's trying to like look casual by it, and it's all politician voice. The statements put out by like Schumer's office, they sound like they were written by ChatGPT, and that would be my like. Stop doing that. Just talk to people like they're normal people. Don't this is Trump's secret sauce. I mean, he has many secret sauces, but there is a authenticity to it where he'll just start talking about Arnold Palmer's schlong, and we look at that and think, oh, this man is having a mental breakdown on stage, but everybody else is like, look at that, he's just real, dude. Anyway, Kitty, hi.
I'd love to sort of throw a few um, crises that have come up in the last 10 days and just get your sense of what we could have done better. And by we, I just mean pro-democracy. So I wanted to throw out the January 6th pardons, so I'd love to hear you guys sort of talk to us about the failure of how we talked about what happened, what he did, and what we need to do to continue to bring this story to the forefront.
Oh, one of the people that Trump let out, they pardoned on January 6th. I don't know if this is the one that you're talking about who's back in jail, but it is a young woman who was pardoned, and she killed 2 people in a DUI. She's drunk and she killed 2 people. I have not seen, if that happened, if Joe Biden pardoned somebody a week ago, and that person had already killed 2 people in a vehicular homicide.
Oh, you mean allegedly?
Allegedly. It's all anybody on the right would be talking about. And they'd all be talking about the same thing because they know how to form their own echo chamber. And I haven't seen, Democrats do not know Joe Biden had no idea how to use his bully pulpit. And Democrats don't know either. Call press conferences. When Donald Trump, he said he was going to do it. He said he was going to let people out. Call press conference right away and say, this is unconscionable. And these people killed cops. Go get the cops. I saw the cops on like MSNBC. Go get the cops and say, they tased him. These people tased this police officer who protected the congressman in this building. Shame them. Take the moral high ground. It is the weak-kneedness, the weak-willedness, the inability. You are on the moral high ground. Take it. You just say something. And everybody who sits around waiting for someone to give them like focus grouped, poll-tested talking points. When JBL says talk normal, half of talking normal is like, you just believe this is wrong, right? Just go say why it's so wrong. Just go talk like a person. And until there is leadership in the Democratic Party, you wonder part of what's going on. And like, these things are symbiotic, right? If you don't have leadership, then there's no one to follow.
Yeah, I will say this, Josh Shapiro had he did a great video about the pardons.
But the fact that you can name any one person is the problem. You should be like, they're all talking about it. It's all anyone's talking about. Go on offense.
I mean, I actually talked to Sarah about hiring somebody to do this, about maybe because so many of these guys have priors. And, when you dig into any of the violent offenders, you realize that January 6th wasn't like their one bad day. Like these are basically just thugs who've been, arrested 5 times already for assault and whatnot. And I've toyed with the idea of getting somebody on staff at the Bulwark whose entire job is just to dig through legal jackets and be ready for, when the next one kills somebody allegedly in a DUI or gets killed by cops in a fight or et cetera, you just go and make a big stink about it. That's one of the things we're thinking about doing. Anyway,
I
go
like
ahead.
that. I'm full on to that. JB Les, please do. Please do. Okay, so we have to stick with the Democratic Party a little bit more because there's so many questions and so many comments from folks who are with us tonight. Just about are you feeling good about any Democratic leaders in Congress or governors who are sort of meeting the moment? Anyone we should be following, we should, promote. Uh-oh.
I would say very quickly, just security, which is, I think Ryan Goodman is the head of that, is a really, really great shop who is going to be absolutely critical. And what they do is they just pull in, um, they pull in subject matter experts. And so they had a woman who is a lawyer who specializes in federal government labor law do a big explainer on the OPM delayed resignation memo and lay out exactly why the whole thing is so shady. And, I've been just sending that around to everybody I know who works in the federal government who, has been rattled by this. Um, you should all bookmark Just Security and check in with them day to day because they are, again, subject matter experts on the most important legal stuff that's going to be happening. So
And this is
that's
a
my main thing.
website, JBL?
Yeah, Just Security.
Okay.
I forget if it's .org or .com. I'll look at that while Sarah talks.
Okay.
Look, I saw a lot of activity in the chat, and I get this a lot. Obviously, like we're more center-ish because we were Republicans for a long time, and so sometimes it's tough because there are people like AOC who, from a policy standpoint, or like, I'm not a big fan of Jasmine Crockett like getting into these like back and forths with like a Marjorie Taylor Greene, and I'm not a big policy fan of AOC. However, I mean, AOC talks to people properly. And there were a ton of people in New York who voted for AOC and Donald Trump. And you know what she did? She went out and asked them, why did you do it? And like had a dialogue with them. And it was a bunch of people being like, I don't know, I feel like you keep it real. I feel like you tell me what I feel like you care about me. And I do think that Democrats live in an old world around communication. And many of them, like, I'm a big fan of like an Amy Klobuchar, right? I'm a sucker for the Minnesota grit. And
you're such a mark for her.
Yeah, right. I'm like right in her, like, and I'm here for Abigail Spanberger and Mikey Sherrill, and Alyssa Slotkin. I think that there are stars, right? I just think that there is something right now that Democrats lack, like a North Star, right? Like it's like they don't know what they believe in this way that when you know what you believe, it's easy to go talk because you're like, this is what I think, right? Donald Trump doesn't need a teleprompter or anything else. Now, he says insane things and they're bad and they come from a bad place, but like he knows what he thinks. He knows he cares about tariffs. He knows he cares about closing the border. He knows he cares about getting rid of DEI and woke. And like, what is that? I don't know, whatever you hate, whatever annoying thing your 5-year-old came home and said that your kindergarten was teaching them right now. Like they understand that, and Democrats are just out to sea. And so like have Democrats, I don't know, listen to people, like listen to, if you listen to a focus group, you immediately go, oh, yeah. And I'll tell you, I disagree. I'm going to drive back on JVL and something he said before about people are unreliable narrators and you can't sort of trust what they say. This is the fight he and I have all the time. I do not agree with that at all. I think that it is truce that, because first of all, there's no such thing as just like voters. I mean, or like, you can't just categorize them all as being one way. Some voters are very well informed. Some voters are not very well informed. Some people are super partisan. Some people aren't remotely partisan. Some people hate everybody. Some people are transactional. Like some people just get their information on their phone from Facebook. Some people read everything and watch a lot of TikToks. Like some people get it all from their workout videos because their favorite workout person also happens to be MAGA. Like there's so many different types of voters and so many fragmented ways of people getting information now. And like, I take people, I understand the difference between a stated preference, which I hear a lot, and a revealed preference. But like, I also see a lot of things where the stated preference and the revealed preference are the same. which is like people are unhappy about immigration. One of the reasons that people like that you see, like, look at the numbers, Black voters, Hispanic voters, young voters, they are moving away from the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party is the most unpopular it's ever been, and the Republican Party is the most popular it's ever been, because the Republican Party is taking over the culture after Democrats owning the culture for decades. And so, like, Democrats have to grapple with this. They have to grapple with this. And I think a lot would be helped if they listened to some of these voters. And I also don't think that there's not real problems out there. Like, just because the macro economy is doing well doesn't mean that inflation hasn't created massive problems for like households that make under $100,000, where that just like it hurts every time. Like, that pain was real. It's not fake.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. There's real
And-
pain always. There was real pain
Yes.
4 years ago and 8 years ago and 10 years ago, and there will be real pain tomorrow. I'm sorry. It is justsecurity.org.
And I'm a big Ben Wickler stan. So I think I know Wickler really well. I've watched him really closely in Wisconsin. I think that he understands he understands the communications challenge, number one. I also think he understands these voters. I think he spent a lot of time figuring out how to do 24/7 all year round organizing in Wisconsin, and that I think, Wisconsin gets a little swamped in a general election, but they won that Supreme Court race, the state Supreme Court race there. Janet Prasejowicz, she won by 11 points in Wisconsin. And that was mostly due to, like, he organizes all the small races. He understands the importance of small races.
A couple things that popped up today, and how is it worth following them down the rabbit hole? Do we message about it, or do we just let it sort of play out? One of them was an executive order today that will hold all funding for public schools that teach DEI. And I'd also like to get your take on, do we try to protect NPR and PBS, because they're going to investigate, the FCC announced that they're going to investigate the sponsorship program that they both use. Is that something that we've been told not to run down every single rabbit hole, but I'm not sure which rabbit holes we should run down. So I'd love to get your thoughts on those two.
I mean, I don't know. Sarah, do you want to go first?
I mean, I have sort of a strong opinion on it, which is that, here's the thing, DEI is something that people need to let go of. Like, DEI is going to be gone. Now, what does that mean? Because DEI now, when it is something like the Tuskegee Airmen, you benefit, and this is where messaging comes in. The Tuskegee Airmen thing was reversed because people were like, what are you talking about? Like, that is an important part of the history. These people are heroes. Like, what's wrong with you? And like, broad pushback for that in specificity. When you say DEI, anything that's labeled DEI, people are going to be like, that means teaching kids about pronouns too early. That means, like, having books in the library that I think aren't age appropriate. Like, whatever. People can impose whatever they want on it. And so the fight, when you push back, you should push back in specificity. But like, DEI as a concept is broadly unpopular. There's a reason that Trump put it on as a shield today in that press conference. And it is because, not just among white people, it's not just people that are racist. People think that this stuff has gone too far. And that's what I mean by Trump winning the culture by a higher margin than he won the election. There are plenty of Dems who are like, stop with the DEI stuff, stop with the pronouns in the emails. And it doesn't feel good in progressive spaces to talk about it, but it is so broadly unpopular, as are Democrats' positions on immigration, that Democrats are going to have to grapple with that. And so I would fight in specificity on places where they're going to overreach and do terrible things that are bad for them, like ban Tuskegee Airmen and say we can't teach about Harriet Tubman. You fight on those things, but like, broad DEI stuff is probably over. And I would say on the NPR front, I would fight on that, though. I would fight on NPR, because NPR, and this is going to come up. The number one station, NPR, is basically the only radio station that broadcasts in a ton of red rural communities. It's the only radio station they've got. And so that's going to come. I would fight on those fronts.
That's interesting. Um, I agree completely about specificity because specificity is your ally on this. Also agree, no Democrat should ever use the word DEI again. You should. There's. Oh yeah, no, I'm totally against DEI, right? And just talk about how, like, what are the actual policies you're in favor of, right? Don't defend the concept. Defend the things that are good. Um, the the EO is so preposterous because it talks about patriotic education, and this is from the party whose stated position is that the Department of Education should be closed down and disappeared, and that we got to get the bureaucrats in Washington out of our schools so that schools can be controlled locally by the people who go there. And that, of course, is not what they want. Um, this is revealed preference to me, right? People will say that what they want is they want the Washington bureaucrats out of their schools, but that's not what they want because the Washington bureaucrats aren't actually in their schools. What they want is they want anybody at any school anywhere to be forced to do things the way they want them and the way they have them in their school. And so if there is somebody in Alabama who hears on Fox that some super lib school district in San Francisco has renamed their school after Harvey Milk or something, well, they want to stop them from doing that. And that's the revealed preference. This is the autocratic impulse, and that's at the heart of all of this. And this is, I mean, the real point of divergence between Sarah and I is that Sarah thinks that this is a salvageable problem and that we can push policy levers and we can do better communication. And I think that this is a social problem and a people problem. And that the problem is that we have a lot of people who want something that's very, very dangerous. Oh, look, I did that with only 7 minutes left.
I know. I was
Toss
going to
them a
say.
grenade in.
Hey, let me just add really quickly that there's a lot of stuff in the
Yeah.
chat about like, well, we need better messaging. No, you don't. You need better messengers. Okay. I swear to God, if this is like the weirdest impulse to me among Democrats, which is like, well, what word would you use? Or like, how do we message? Stop with the thinking about how do we message? No, you need good messengers and they just need to go out and say what they believe. I need to say it passionately, right? Go fight. Yeah. Fight for things. And you don't need a PowerPoint presentation. Why do Democrats talk like they're giving well, first of all, this, and second of all, this, like, Donald Trump, do you see the signs that were all over for Trump versus Kamala? It was like, Trump, lower costs, Kamala, higher costs. I mean, people have got to stop overthinking so much of this.
Sarah, did you want to throw yourself out of a window watching the Democratic senators questioning people then? Because to your point about better messengers, good Lord.
Did you see Chuck Schumer being like, the people are very aroused. I've never seen them so aroused. I'm like, oh yeah, why wouldn't people think this is the cool party anymore?
Sarah, JBL, I'm so grateful to both of you, to everyone at the Bulwark for the work that you do, the stance that you take, the opinions that you give, and the fact that you are just out there all the time. And we at Big Tent are just so proud to know you, to partner with you, and look forward to the many times that we will be quoting you in the future. So thanks everyone for coming tonight to Big Tent. There'll be more to come, and we'll see you all soon.
I saw that.
Everyone.
Yeah, next time we'll bring Tim. Thanks for having us, guys.
Oh yeah, please bring Tim. Please bring Tim. Yeah. We'll have
Thanks
everyone, have the whole gang. All right, everyone. Good night. Thank you.